Good morning. Once again, good morning. My name is Matt. I am a pastor in town. I work by day at Nathan Adelson Hospice. I'm here to cover for Pastor Bill, so this is only 1 week. Hopefully we will endure it together. And I am riding high for two reasons. One, it's an absolutely beautiful day, so I don't think that God gives bonus points, but bonus points for all of you. For coming to church instead of heading to Mount Charleston or walking around your neighborhood. Bonus points for coming and thanking God for this beautiful day. And I'm riding high as well because Derek Skubal went down yesterday, and my Guardians are now advancing into the ALCS, and I'm here to pray that they will hold up against the Yankees. For the last couple weeks, you have been going through the last book of the Bible. You've been reading Revelation, and you have been unpacking it, not as a code to see when the end of the world will happen, but as a loving and gracious promise from God. And today we are on the second to last chapter, but we are approaching the end of the story. And so today I want us to think about how some other stories have ended and what is unique about this ending that we have in Revelation. Now, The Simpsons, which has been on forever, 35 years. I was in kindergarten when The Simpsons first premiered. They did a show that was kind of a gag show. They brought Conan O'Brien back, and they teased having a series finale for The Simpsons. And what they did instead was they had the Simpsons characters reenact some famous series finales from the history of television. And you remember a show for how it ended. I will leave these up for a little bit so you can guess and see which series finale that they're spoofing, which show that they're spoofing. Because there's a way that a series finale sets a tone for how the show is remembered. There's a lot of choices that writers and directors can make. So we'll see how the Bible might be similar or might be different. Now, a lot of people think that maybe not the Bible, but the end of the world will kind of be like the end of The Sopranos. And if you haven't seen these shows and I'm spoiling it for you, I'm so sorry, but like I said, I won't be here next week. So at the end of The Sopranos, which is the story of a mafia family in New Jersey, which revolutionized television and brought the mafia down from the lofty and poetic heights of The Godfather into everyday American life. They wanted to end on that tone. So the last scene showed Tony Soprano with his family gathered at an all-American diner, and he is playing Don't Stop Believing by Journey on the jukebox, and all of a sudden, some of you are nodding your head because you know how this ends. All of a sudden, the screen just goes to black, and then the show ends suddenly. Now, there's a lot of theories about what could happen. Some people think that Tony finally got whacked in the end. Some people thought it was an artistic decision to just kind of stop there and show that the even though the show's ending, the story is continuing by not giving it a satisfying conclusion. And there's a lot of people that think that the world is going to end this way. Just one day, everything's going to stop. The screen's just going to go to black, and the story's over. Well, according to Revelation, the end will not quite be like that. Now, some people might think that the ending of the world would be like the ending of Newhart. By the way, when I was growing up, right after my bedtime, my parents would turn on Newhart. So every time I hear that theme song from Newhart, I'm like a 6-year-old kid in my bed listening to those beautiful strings. I hope I'm not like too. You all remember Newhart, right? He died recently. Yeah. So this is what they did at the end of Newhart. So at the end of Newhart, he gets hit by a golf ball, and he kind of passes out. And then he wakes up in bed next to his wife from the Bob Newhart show. And he says, "Oh my gosh, I've had the craziest dream." Now, there's a lot of people who think that the world ending might be this way, that it's just a dream that some being has that they wake up from, and it all just kind of vanishes or disappears in the midst. Well, according to Revelation, the ending of the world is a little bit like the ending of the show. I've finally put my generation back in here. The ending of Friends, right? The very popular show from the 90s and 2000s. In the 90s, it was like Thursday night was a point in television, right? Friends, it was, Friends first and then Seinfeld. I forget exactly how it shook out. But at the end of Friends, they all gather in the apartment where most of the show took place, and they all turn in their keys and just kind of leave them on the table, and the place is completely stripped down, and they're sad, and they walk away. And it's kind of a little bit like Revelation shows the world ending. The old heavens and the old earth passing away. Kind of like an apartment that we don't live anymore. In the last bit of dialogue of Friends, someone says, "Well, why don't we've got some time, why don't we go for coffee?" And Chandler gets the last zinger in and says, "Where?" as a joke, knowing that they're going to go back to Central Perk, where the show began in the first place. And that's a little bit the way that the book of Revelation shows the world ending. It doesn't end in a black screen. It doesn't end as somebody's dream. But it ends by going back to the beginning. It goes back to a creation. The same way the entire Bible opens. You're not going to be able to see Friends again without thinking about this, right? They go back to the coffee perk. They go back to creation. They go back to a new, but they don't totally go back. It is a new heaven and a new earth descending onto ours. So often when we think about passing away, we have this kind of notion that we've borrowed from the Greeks and from Looney Tunes cartoons, that we die and our soul kind of like ascends up into the clouds. According to Revelation, it's a little bit different. According to Revelation, at the very end, instead of ascending, a new creation descends upon the earth, which has been charred, which has been broken, which has passed away. And a new creation, a new Genesis, a new beginning is introduced to the world. It's a very powerful thought, right? Everybody thinks that for Christians, that we just kind of beam up into the upper atmosphere, sit on a cloud, and play a harp. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's a new creation, full of wonders we can't imagine, full of light, full of wonder, full of majesty. It's the song kind of captures it, right? I can only imagine. It's something that we are promised. And even better than this, the whole Bible is wrapped up in these few verses that we are given, right? It's not, it's almost like Lego. We have a lot of Lego in the house, and we'll build it from the instructions, and then, a 4-year-old, and just over time it'll kind of decay. And then maybe we'll get the instructions. Maybe we'll find all the pieces. If not, it's really easy to order from Lego.com now. I hope they pay me for this advertisement, right? And you could do all that work, and you can make it again, but then it's always going to fall apart. But this time, we are told it's a little different. Because there's this phrase that's said at the very end of our lesson, where it says, I will be their God, and they will be my children, which is a good way to translate that. But it comes all the way. So we've had Genesis. Now we're going to move to Exodus. When God says, look, he tells Moses, I've heard you crying out. I know what the Egyptians are doing to you, and I am going to redeem you from them. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm not just going to do you a solid. I am going to be your God, and you will be my people. It's a promise that God made, saying, look, I'm not just going to free you and let you fly away. I'm going to free you, and I'm going to walk with you until you get to a new home, and I will dwell in that home with you. And it says, the word there in our lesson is skena, which means I will have a tent with you. I will go camping with you. I will be there for you. I will show you how to light a fire in the wilderness. I will have good food for you to grill, right? It is God saying, I'm not just going to free you. I'm going to journey with you. And here at the end, even though Israel broke the covenant again and again, even though we in the church still struggle, God says, at the very end, I am going to make a home with you, just as he promised in Exodus. And then he makes it even better. He says, I'm going to wipe every tear from your eyes. And he just loads it on. And he says, look, there will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain. All of that passed away. All of that is part of your old apartment. All of that will not bother you anymore. This is what a new creation means. A new world that is free of those things. A new world that is free of the central problem of all of Scripture. Sin, death, and yes, pain. You see it right in the beginning as well, when all God creates heavens and the earth. He creates people in the first 2 chapters. And then in chapter 3, everything goes wrong, right? And we can get into that later. But after God says some things to the serpent, God tells Adam, cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat food from it all the days of your life. Right? When God tells Adam he's kicked out of the garden, he says things are going to be really hard for you. Now, this word painful toil comes from a root in Hebrew, atzab. Atzab means not just pain, like, Pastor Bill tripped over his poor dog and has had surgery, right? That's painful, but it's not atzab. Atzab means grief. It's that kind of heart pain, the pain that goes all the way deep in you. It's a word that's used later when it says God was grieved because he saw all the violence on the earth. Kind of how we feel when we turn on the news and we hear about what's going on in the Middle East or Ukraine, or even in the devastation from the hurricanes that have happened lately. Our hearts are just grieved. And God says, I'm going to wipe those tears from your eyes. I'm going to take that pain from your heart. And even better than that, I'm going to make all things new. But I said that wrong. This is the most wonderful, great news in the series finale. We don't have to wait for the final episode for it to begin. And you hear it in what Jesus says from the throne. And English majors, this is your day. Or English teachers. He doesn't say, I will make, I have made, right? I should make, right? The tense of the verb is present tense. Present tense means continuous, repeated action, right? If I say I'm preaching, it's the present tense. Hopefully it won't be too continuous for you this morning, right? But if you use the present tense, it is continuous action. And so when Jesus says, I'm making all things new, he says it is continuous. It continues. It goes on. And he also says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am in the beginning and I am in the end. And wherever I am making all things new. I am not just sitting back and watching the state of affairs and waiting for people to get their act together. I am in the midst of this. I am making all things new constantly. Right? This is what Christ is to us, the one who makes us new. That is revealed to us in the very moment that we are baptized. We are made new in that moment. When we are forgiven our sins, we are made new. When we walk through this life and we seek to bless others, we make something new, right? When a kid at Garside gets a new jacket, that is hope. That is recreation. That is the easing of pain. And most of all, right, my son's right there in the first row. I caught him when he was born. I got to hold him in my arms. New life. I'd heard that talked about my entire life by parents, and I'd never known what that meant. But when you are holding a new life, everything becomes new around you. And that's what Revelation is teaching us the end of the world will be like. It will be a new beginning. It will be a new birth. It will be newness and hope and the ability to start again, the ability to make a path again, the ability to be free from the things of the past that held us down, and most of all, the ability to have a new relationship with God. For me, there was a day where things were feeling pretty old. I can get pretty busy, and most pastors can, and I know in our society most people are. And, I'm in my 40s now, and they say your 40s and your 30s are when you're the most miserable because you've got child-raising responsibilities, your parents are starting to get older, you're trying to get on a certain footing with your career, right? But anyway, when I get busy, when I have a lot of patients to see, when I have a lot of things going on at the house, when I have funerals for people I've barely met that I have to do, and when I have to drive all around the valley, I get pretty worn. I get pretty discouraged. And one of the first things that starts to ebb is, and I will confess to you plainly, it is my faith in God. It's funny, when I try to when I try to always do things on my own and be there for people and run myself ragged, God starts to kind of fade in the background for me. And I drove all the way down to Boulder City. That's a picture of it there at the the Southern Nevada Veterans Memorial Cemetery, where I end up doing a lot of funerals. As I was driving down there, I was just worn out. I was tired. I'd had maybe 4 hours of sleep, and I was just praying like, God, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this work anymore. I'm done. I'm tired. Did I even make the right career choice? It's just the same thing over and over again. I am so worn out. I have to do this funeral. I have to see 3 more people today. I just can't do this. And that was my prayer. My apartment that I was living in was a little crowded. I needed it to pass away. But I did the funeral at the chapel, and then we went down to the columbarium, where I did a final committal liturgy. And the text I selected was the same one that we had this morning. I am making all things new. I will wipe away every tear. I figured it's an appropriate funeral text. But as I was kind of just reading that text with not a lot of heart in it, everybody started gasping. And I was like, I feel like I'm a pretty good public speaker, but I didn't know I could do this good while reading the Bible. And people were pointing. And behind me, on a wreath, was a hummingbird that just stayed there, right? Hummingbirds are usually pretty, they're all over the place. They're zipping all around. But this hummingbird just stayed there right above the picture of this lady that I was doing the funeral for. And somebody in the crowd, there were about 15 people gathered there. Somebody said, "Hi, Mom," right as I read these very words. I am making all things new. Right in the middle of a funeral that the pastor doing it did not have his heart in, that the people were probably only half listening to. There was this beautiful sign of new life. Now, I'm not saying this to advocate for reincarnation, but what I am saying is at the time when I was most worn, at the time I was most exhausted, at the time I was most faithless, the series finale peeked its head into that tiny little space with hummingbird wings and said, "Don't forget, I'm making all things new, and I won't stop." Amen.